Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome on this Fantabulous Friday, of course, Cinco de Mayo. We are very excited. We have the amazing opportunity today to connect with Dr. Amanda Adkins, and we're just going to hop right on into it. But first, before we get into the conversation, Dr. Adkins is double board certified in internal medicine and lifestyle medicine. She is the CEO, owner of Enlightenment Health and Wealth. Welcome to the TwoSistas podcast, Dr. Adkins.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Yes, we are excited to talk to you as well. And of course, I forgot to introduce myself. As everyone knows, I am Janice, aka Wellness Diva 5.0. Hopefully Carol, aka Nani Boss, will be able to hop on. And let's just say there's a gator issue, but it's all good. Don't want anyone to worry. Dr. Adkins, you know, your story, there's always a story behind the story, and you really come from a very heartfelt place in your weight loss journey, which is why I can certainly see that you are so incredibly passionate about your business and helping women and helping people to really change their lifestyles in a way, like to stop that, you know, yo-yo type of dieting. Wow. Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yes. So for me, my wellness journey started back when.
Are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I said my wellness journey started back when I was in high school, and I tell people it's always a pivotal point in life where you have something that you're like, wow, you know, kind of eye-opening. And for that, it was when I was a freshman in high school, and we had to do a presidential physical fitness test. I don't know if people remember those back in the 90s.
Yes, yes.
Yes. So one of the things you had to do was actually weigh yourself, and I had to get on the scale, and I weighed 199 pounds as a 13-year-old. And that was like mind-boggling to me. It was like shocking. And I was like, okay, I can never let 2 be the first number of my weight. And so I tell people all the time, if it was like 205, it probably wouldn't have been as shocking. If it was like 190, it probably wouldn't have been as shocking, but because it was right there on the cusp, it was like, okay, you have to do something different. And so I started exercising. And at this point in time, I already knew I wanted to be a physician. I decided that in 6th grade. But to actually have my own health, think about that was just at that time. So I became a vegetarian at the age of 16. And I tell people I was just the junk food vegetarian. So I still ate, you know, McDonald's. I tell people my favorite meal was a Big Mac with no meat and fries. But it still was like I was losing weight along the journey, and going through med school, it was kind of the same thing. So I never went back and ate meat again, but never was necessarily real healthy with the eating, but I did lose the weight. And then once I got done with residency, I went to a conference because we don't learn a lot about nutrition in med school. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go to this conference. It was in Arizona. I always wanted to go to Arizona. And one of the doctors that was speaking there said, you cannot out-exercise a bad diet. So that was another pivotal point for me. And I'm like, okay, so I always thought, you know, whatever you ate, you can just, you know, exercise and burn it off, and that would be fine. But he was actually at the point talking about eating more of a whole food plant-based diet. And I didn't really catch on to that as much as that, but that was just that phrase, it stuck with me for now. I would say that was in 2009, 2010. And afterwards, I was still, you know, learning about nutrition. And actually one of my patients told me about Dr. Furman, and he is the writer and author of Eat to Live. And so I got that book and was reading about that. And then I learned about plant-based nutrition from there. So it was a few years later, though, that I actually stopped eating like eggs and dairy. Once I found out it didn't really agree with my body anyway, but I was still eating it. And then I learned about actually plant-based nutrition and lifestyle medicine probably several years later after hearing that doctor talk about you cannot out exercise a bad diet. And then I was, looking at it, lifestyle medicine, I'm like, oh my gosh, where has this been all my life? Because this is exactly what I've been looking for not only for myself, but for my patients. And for myself, I tell people all the time, it's like, my family has heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, cancers. And it was also a point when I was looking at my, grandparents and my aunts and uncles, how they were aging and unfortunately passing away from these illnesses. And I was like, well, I know I have those genes. I don't want that to be, how my story actually goes in my life, and trying to change that for not only myself, but my daughter and family. So now, because I know all this information, it's hard to keep it to yourself when people ask.
Amen.
It's like, oh, yes. So when people, especially my patients or clients, ask me about, when I talk to them about, their lifestyle, the question I usually got when I was first starting in medicine was like, well, are you doing it? And I'm like, well, in fact, I am. Like, I hear what the different changes can be, and I actually try to make those changes before I bring them to you, because I don't want to sit there and say, you need to do this, you need to do that, like a lecturer. I was like, no, I'm more like a cheerleader. We're in this together. So I just love, hearing people ask about it, and love talking about it once they know I love lifestyle medicine, and just go from there.
And your passion shows in the enthusiasm and how you talked about your journey. And in just a few moments, I've learned so much more from you. I want to ask you though, back in 6th grade, you were talking about how you knew you wanted to be a physician. Just out of curiosity, are there any physicians in your family?
No, there are no physicians in my family. I didn't even know really what a doctor did. I mean, truthfully, like when we were younger, we went to the doctor and got like our vaccinations and things like that. But by the time I was in 6th grade, we really didn't go to the doctor. Like our parents, like, you're fine, you don't need to go. But it was a health class. I always have to shout out my 6th grade teacher, Mr. Ivy. He was very creative in teaching us how the cardiovascular system worked in the human body. And he put down a life-size, well, I shouldn't say life-size, it's bigger than life, map on the ground to where the students had to walk like the blood was flowing through the heart and the vascular system. And I was like, oh my gosh, the human body is amazing. And I want to be able to help people, with their human body. And that was the point on. And then I actually went to the library, because we didn't have like Google and all that kind of stuff then, and learned like what a physician did, what a heart doctor actually did. That's where I started, because that's what I learned. And then once my grandfather found out that I was interested in being a physician, he actually took me to his cardiologist, and I was able to talk to him, shadow him and see what was going on. So it's just like, you have a loving family that embraces your dreams, and here I am today.
And you know what? I got the chills thinking about it and got excited. I mean, think of that for a moment. You're a 6th grader, which I guess is considered middle school, maybe not knowing what you want to do yet a teacher presented something to you in a way that sparked your curiosity, where you wanted to learn more. And that is an awesome story. I love that.
Yes.
A side question, totally off topic. Speaking of, going to the library, do you remember the Dewey Decimal System?
Yes, we actually had to learn that in elementary school, to learn, like we had a library class to learn that.
Yes, I remember that. And I think we are kind of showing our respectable age brackets here, but
right.
When you said, obviously there wasn't Google and you went to the library, I'm like, oh, the Dewey Decimal System. For those of you who don't know what that is, go ahead and Google it.
Google it now.
Yeah, you can Google it now. Oh my gosh. Now, I love where you were describing your journey, when you got into high school. you know, you started to lose weight, you adopted the vegan lifestyle. But yet, when you're at this conference later, some years later in Arizona, where the physician is giving the presentation, and true to what he said, you can't outrun, excuse me, a bad diet. When you look back at your journey, because I see the correlation, I see the connection when you were like, okay, I'm eating vegan, I'm losing weight, but now what do I do?
Mhm. Yes. So it was going from the mindset of just weight loss and how I was looking externally to the illnesses that actually affected the family and what I was going to actually look into. So I was like looking at my family, seeing my future. And I was like, okay, so yes, I lost weight, but even with weight loss and being at a healthy weight, you can still develop different chronic illnesses like diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, cancer, from nutrition, because all those things are actually linked to nutrition. So
Mhm.
that was another, pivotal point to where I was like, okay, so yes, you're at a healthy weight now, but what do you want your health to look like when you're 80 and 90 years old? Like I love, hiking, and I was, running half marathons and things like that. And I was like, I still want to be able to do all that when I'm 90. So that was again the change in the point to why I started more of a plant-based eating lifestyle than just like vegetarian or vegan. Because of course you can, like I said, still eat junk food
Mm.
on those types of eating patterns.
That is so true because, I just thought of when, I was diagnosed with a non-celiac gluten sensitivity. Well, the first thing I did was, go to the grocery store. I'm like, oh, this is gluten-free. This is gluten-free.
Mm.
When I started taking my course at integrative nutrition for my health, excuse me, my health coaching certification, obviously I educated myself more on it. And, when you go to a box of whatever it is, let's say it's a box of cookies. I love
Mhm, mhm.
I think what people don't understand, and I had this actual conversation with my husband the other night. He thought 14 grams meant 14 teaspoons of sugar. And I'm like, no, it's 4 grams equal a teaspoon. So that's like 3.5. Like you
Mhm.
really have to go through the education process of reading the labels and what is in, like how much sugar, how much sodium, and the ingredients. And, it really was such an education.
Yes. Yes. So label reading, yeah, that's something like I said, we didn't grow up learning to look at. But now the first thing I look at is usually the ingredient list. If I can't make that in my kitchen, it's like probably shouldn't be eating this, not really much of a whole food. And if I can't pronounce things, like I can pronounce a few things as a physician, but not everything. So looking definitely closer at that. So I tell people that's a easier way to try to look at it if you don't have the education like a nutrition background or a dietitian background to actually be able to break those things down. You can be able to look at the ingredients because now they actually have to list the ingredients, whereas before they didn't have to do that. So that's so mind-blowing for a lot of people. Like you said, you look at that and you're like, oh my gosh. And then you look at the serving size. So then once you see, oh, this bag of chips that you would think is just for one person, it could be like 3 to 5 servings in in that bag, and you're thinking, oh, it's only like a little 100 calories of this, but then if you look at the serving size, it can actually be like 700 calories depending on what it is that you're eating. So we definitely have to be more aware of what we're putting in our body. And it doesn't have to be hard. Like a lot of people are like, oh, I'm so used to eating a certain way, but you think about it, because I have like people that are in their like 40s and up. It's like, well, you were conditioned to eat this way, and it will take a little bit of a learning curve, but you can do it. So you don't have to just think, okay, because I ate this way, because my parents ate this way, I'm going to continue to do that. Or, oh, my grandmother lived and she was 90 and she ate this food. And I was like, the food in the soil is a little bit different. So we can't really compare, that from before, what our grandparents did that we think is okay just because they lived. And then sometimes we don't know what our grandparents were suffering, because if you're younger, you just see that they're there. They may just be pushing through. You may not know all the illnesses that they have, or maybe they never even went to the doctor. Because I hear that a lot. Oh, I don't know what's in my family because they never went to the doctor. So it's a lot that you can learn. And if you're still alive, it's still a chance that you can change what you're doing. So don't feel like, an old dog can't learn new tricks. Like I hear that and I'm like, you're still alive. We still have some life to live. Let's change it now.
Well, you know what? That is so true. And thank you so much for bringing that up, because really that is so important. We can make a change today. Like even right now here in this time, like, for instance, we talk about hydration, maybe you don't drink enough water. So maybe if you're listening to this right now, or when it's uploaded to wherever platform you listen to your podcast, and you think, yeah, she's got her water. I got my little water here and I sprinkled a little, actually I poured in a little cranberry juice. That is an important step. Like, okay, I'm going to go get myself a glass of water. That's huge. And I don't think people give themselves enough credit for, taking those necessary steps.
Right. Yes. And it just takes, like I said, one step. You don't have to make dramatic changes and do things, all at one time, because sometimes that's very overwhelming for some people. Some people, it works great. Like if I'm going to do it, I have to go all in or nothing. But sometimes that's not what other people are able to do and able to sustain it long term. So that's why I like to talk about how my journey started when I was in, high school. And, 3 decades later, I'm still on this journey. And we never really arrive. We're always on a journey for our own health and wellness. And you can't compare your journey to someone else thinking, oh, well, she did this and was able to do that in this amount of time, so I should be able to also. You never know like how things are going internally. So I would tell you, take your own journey, take your own step, and then just surround yourself with people of like mind, because then they will continue to encourage you to actually stay on your health and wellness journey. And like I said, again, it's a journey. You never arrive. So always keep seeking out. Because like I said, I became a vegetarian, vegan, then plant-based, and all that's, over decades. And the majority of my life, it was still junk food vegetarian. So I'm still on that journey.
Dr. Adkins, it's really hard to imagine that you were a vegan junk food addict or whatever.
It's like, just tell people to go to my Facebook page. I usually put up there, comparisons of when I graduated med school. Like that's the picture I have, like graduating med school compared to after I went to that nutrition conference and started eating plant-based. So years later, so you still see that difference. Like, and like I look at it, I'm just like, oh wow, it's mind-boggling. But again, three decades of working towards this, and still working. I'm not perfect. I still, like junk food every now and then, and get what I can, but a lot farther along than what I used to be.
That is so true. And of course, earlier I mentioned cookies, and it's so funny. And then you mentioned chips. Those are like my 2 favorite things. I cannot trust it around a bag of chips.
Yes.
In fact, when I was taking my walk around the circle, I'm like, oh, I can go for a little bag of chips when I feel the need. Like I don't deny myself, but I'm not going to buy a big bag. I'll buy one of these little bags just so that, you can't deny yourself is what I'm trying to say.
That's right. So that's why I like the story where I tell people that, like, you don't have to go all in. You can just take a few things to change along the way. And then, like I said, sometimes you just want some chips. Like I had corn chips. I was like, oh yeah, I see those. Like that was like my number 1 favorite. Well, after Doritos, I love Doritos. Doritos and Coke was my go-to. I could say I'm actually freed from those, but I can still say, like, when I hear someone open a Coke, it's not Pepsi, it's not Sprite, it's not anything. It's like a Coca-Cola. When somebody opens that and I hear that, it kind of like takes me back to like, whoo, I remember drinking that.
That is so true. And it's so funny that you said that, because years ago, I mean, I loved Coca-Cola. I was always drinking that. And then
Mhm.
for some reason I switched to Pepsi, and then I just went totally cut out the soda. But every now and then and it seems to be only when I travel, I like to get a Diet Coke.
Mhm. Yes, it is. It's always something that's there that would trigger that. But yeah, I tell you, I was so bad with drinking Coca-Cola. My stepfather would laugh at me because he was like, he knows when he comes to my house, I would always have something there. And I said, I used to track the cycles of when it would go on sale and stock up. So you're talking about an avid Coca-Cola drinker like that.
Oh my gosh. A doctor who's shedding all her secrets. I love it.
Yes, I know, because I was like, when people hear that and they're like, oh, she doesn't, not too far off from where I am, or she doesn't think that or look down on me because I do certain things. I'm like, whatever you say, I've probably done it too, and to an extreme at one point in time.
And you know what? That's so important too, to share it with your clients, because they relate to that. Like, there is a relationship there, and to show the vulnerability. I can remember when I was at this wellness company and health coaching our clients, and this one person she was just having a hard time. Long story short, she said, "You have no idea, you don't understand." And I would always carry around, and I was looking for this picture, I couldn't find it. But I would pull out this picture of myself, which was taken when I was at my heaviest. And speaking of the 200 mark, my commercial kickboxing bag weighs 272 pounds. I weighed a little bit more than that. We'll just leave it
Oh,
there. So I
okay.
picture, and I said, I do understand. And they didn't know that was me. They're like, that is not you. And I'm like,
Right.
yeah, I'm sad to say it is. It is.
Yes. Because they see where you are now and don't understand what you've been through. And that's why I say I think it's important that we actually tell the story. So that's why when I have those people in front of me, I'm like, hey, this is what I did and how it is. And I understand it can be hard, but and then like they can relate a little bit more and like, oh, okay. Okay, she really understands. It's not like I've been this way my whole life. That's not the case.
Yeah, and there's a vulnerability in that. I think too that when I look back at my weight loss journey, like, I thought that was like, oh my God, like, I decided I was going to make a lifestyle change. I was going to invest in my wellness, because I had been on every diet imaginable. But to me now, I think it's almost a little harder in the sense to maintain that weight loss. It
Yes.
all around it's just hard, but I always say, choose your hard and choose
Mhm.
it wisely.
Yes, yes. I'm glad you mentioned that because I talk to people about that because once hit a certain goal, you're like, okay, and then you can kind of like, say laid back and then just kind of trickle back. It's easier to go backwards than forwards, like I tell them in that journey. And I always tell people you have to really dig down deep and figure out why did you want to come to this point. So again, I tell people it wasn't initially it was the weight loss for me that got me to the point. But what keeps me going is those illnesses that are in my family. So whenever I think about I want to give up, I'm tired of doing this, I'm tired of trying to read the labels, I'm tired of meal prepping, all that type of thing. I remember my grandmothers, and unfortunately they passed away before I started talking about my own journey, but I had them on this earth for almost for myself 39 to 40 years. And when I see how they were when I was younger, because they were younger grandparents, and then how they actually aged, and in the last few years of their life, it wasn't the life that they wanted. And so every time I want to go back, I just think of them and like how much they would want to do more and how much they're like, oh, I don't, one of my grandmothers was on dialysis and she was like, I'm tired. I just want to give up. And I think her body just gave out at the end. She was like, I'm tired of doing this. And like I said, I think about like when I'm their age, what do I want to be doing? And then that puts me back, on track. and it's not anyone else. So you can't look for someone else to like guilt you into it, or me as, you know, your physician saying, you know, your blood sugars are high, your blood pressure is high, you got to change something. No, it usually comes more that deep, I tell people, conviction within yourself to know why you're doing this and to keep you going.
That is so true, because I do believe that when you are on that journey, you know, for instance, both of my parents, you know, adult onset diabetes, heart issues. And it goes back to, I remember thinking that as I started my journey, I did not want to contribute to my downfall. Therefore, I'm like, okay, that's logical. I had to be an active participant. Um, and I guess the question that I want to ask is, we could be predisposed to something. Like, I am certainly predisposed by genetics, but there's a lot of truth, but in hoping some medical background as far as taking care of yourself, like take that out of the equation as much as possible.
Right. So your genetics is a one factor, one risk factor. But there's all these other risk factors that you can actually contribute to your own illness. So there's very few, excuse me, illnesses that we actually have that if your parents had it, you're going to get it. Like it's not 100%. So there's very few illnesses out there like that. There's some, you know, autosomal dominant things that go on, like Huntington's disease, things like that. If you have that gene, you're going to get it. But there's a lot of things that you can either turn genes on or turn genes off. And that's with lifestyle. So, excuse me, again, that's what I actually love. So like I said, I know I have the genes for cancers, breast cancer is big in my family. I know I have the genetics for diabetes and heart disease because both of my grandmothers had it. And so I know now that if I eat a certain way, that I can turn that gene off like a switch. I can turn that off because it's not being triggered. But if I, you know, go back to eating how I was before, and I didn't mention this before, but I was a bacon, bologna, ham eating person because my dad, my dad was able to get that type of food. He was a meat delivery truck driver. So those are the types of foods that can trigger, you know, those chronic illnesses. So I know if I go back to eating that, because people are like, don't you have the desire to eat meat? And I was like, no, because I know on the other side of meat, I can turn that gene on and I don't want that. So you do have control over those types of illnesses, like high blood pressure, diabetes, stroke, heart attack, and even maybe even Alzheimer's. They're still doing research on that because I have a lot of people that are afraid of that because they're like, even if they're here, they want to still be in their right mind. For some reason, the heart disease and diabetes don't get to them as much as if they start to develop dementia or memory loss. So it's still a vascular type thing. You still need that blood flow. So I tell people, like, when you're thinking about, you know, your memory, I mean, you can influence that with your nutrition and exercise too. So you definitely have the power to turn things on and turn things off. So I always like to put people back in control of their own health. You have the power to do this. So let's tap into that.
That is amazing because you can be an active participant while working with you and being the cheerleader, the coach, yes, to guide them through that process.
Yes, yes. So I always like to say I'm a cheerleader because I was a cheerleader in high school, still love cheerleading to this day. So to get you on, I can tell you certain things to do, but I like to cheer you on because, like I said, this is your journey, and we can keep you going. And always tell people to come back. Make sure you come back and let me know how you're doing. Don't try to shy away because sometimes people are like, oh, if I just don't go back to her, then I won't worry about it. Even if you're not doing anything we talked about, come back for some reassurance to keep going. Like sometimes you need that just to hear people say, you got this, you got this. It's not easy, but you can do it.
It is not easy. I mean, we both have had our own journeys and, you know, we can attest to that. And, you know, I love when, you know, when I'm working with clients, you know, doing health coaching to, you know, I relate to that. And I think people are maybe more apt to connect with someone who can relate, that has not just say, oh, I know how you feel, but really relate in a manner in what they're going through. And that could really mean the difference for somebody.
Yes, 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 so much. Because like I said, whenever you tell your story and people think, I love telling people about my Coca-Cola journey, like they're always thinking, because I always say, oh no, you shouldn't be drinking that. I was like, and I teased them, usually I said, if you drink Pepsi, I'm gonna just, downgrade you. You can't do anything at all, where anything. But then I was like, if you drink Coke, then I'm more loving towards you. I know, I understand. So like sometimes when you make it a little bit lighter mood for them, it actually helps kind of break down their own defenses when you're talking to people, and just kind of see and smile, and just to know. And then people are always wondering like, oh, I like coming to see you because you laugh with me. And I never thought that would be something that, someone would say. But it's just, to be able to relate, human being to human being about, our own life journeys, and know that it's not, just all strict and to the point. We definitely can have fun in life and fun in the journey. So keep going.
Yeah, and keep going. It really is the mainframe. We're blessed with each day, and why not live it to the fullest, right?
Yes, yes.
What is one thing about your journey, for instance, when you look back, and here you are today, when you look back on your journey, what would you say to the younger Amanda?
Ooh. To the younger, I would probably be crying. Like if I was talking to the younger Amanda. To let her know that I'm gonna cry. To let her know that it's okay. Like this is a point that you went through in life, that you had to go through to help someone else. And I always laugh at my mom because she would get emotional talking, and here I am today doing that all the time now. But that even though it seemed hard and you didn't know where you were going to go, that it was going to help a lot of people because you had to go through this.
And you
I'm
truly
sorry.
no apologies are needed. I so appreciate your sharing your raw vulnerability, because on all of our podcasts, and my other two podcasts as well, I always stress the importance of telling your story. Sometimes we may think that they are not relevant, but they are. And the fact that you shared that in such a raw, vulnerable moment, to let your younger self know that you had to go through what you did because you knew that you were meant for more, to help others succeed. That is beautiful.
Yes. Because when you're going through it, you're like, man, I look at her, she's eating the same thing I'm eating. Why is she not like this? So yeah, to be able to relate to people at this point in time, to know. And like I said, when they hear that, they're like, oh wow, I can't believe like you've been going through that. And like again, like I said, 3 decades later, still here. And now being able to have the voice and trying to get it out, what I've been through, to like for others to hear, that it definitely can be done. And again, it may not be overnight. It's usually not overnight. It seems like it's overnight when you hear other people's story, but say 13, and like I say, I'm 44 now. So it's like I said, it's been 3 decades that I've been doing this.
I can totally relate to that. Somewhat older than you. All right. I'm quite a few years older than you. Let's be real here. No, but the point being that, if we have the opportunity to help others and look back at our journey, and we see the vulnerability of that story and know that it can help others, and that That is the amazing thing. I just want to, excuse me, just want to segue over for a moment and welcome all of our amazing listeners currently on the Wisdom audio app. I see some familiar names. Thank you so much for being here. Dr. Amanda, do you have time? I was thinking maybe perhaps we could invite one of our guests that are listening. Maybe they have a quick question for you. Is that okay with?
Yes.
All right, Wisdom, we have time for one guest to come up on stage. If you'd like to ask Dr. Amanda a question or perhaps contribute to the conversation, we invite you to come up. Again, we have time for one guest. Dr. Amanda, as we're potentially waiting for hopefully someone to come up, that would be awesome. How can our viewers and listeners connect with you further?
Yeah, so I have a website, dramandamd.com. That's DRAMANDAMD.com. And then I'm on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Dr. Amanda Adkins. And my last name is spelled ADKINS.
I know, I have it right everywhere else, and in my calendar, I wrote it with a T, sorry.
Yes, because I tell people like there's a very big difference between the Atkins with the T that you would hear about within nutrition versus what I'm talking about. So
Exactly. And of course, I will make sure all of that gets in the show notes. Dr. Atkins, do you meet with potential patients virtually as well?
So when I'm doing this, I would meet with people more on the coaching side. So I would do that, and you can connect with me through the website. There's a button where you can say, book a free 20-minute consult call. For my actual practice in Northern California, I actually work, and my practice unfortunately is closed to new patients because, people hear about what I do. They don't want to be on medications. They come to me. So that's why I'm trying to make myself available for the coaching side. And then I could do that from anywhere around the country. Currently, I'm in California, so definitely can reach out via Zoom and do this meet that way for people that still want to learn about lifestyle, nutrition, and medicine.
Wow, that is amazing. And what a benefit to those who are going to be seeking you out to have that conversation with you. I want to take this opportunity to really thank you from the bottom of my heart, for being with us today. Your story resonates. And one question that I do have, maybe it's more of a comment, and this just popped into my head. I foresee you on a TEDx stage.
Oh my. So I will accept it and pray. I tell people I'm always nervous when I'm out here talking. So I'm like fidgeting even as we're talking here. And I'm like that introverted person that likes to hide in the background, but I feel myself, like you said, being called out, and I have to embrace now that journey of my life to be called out.
That is amazing. Thank you so much. And I hope you definitely will consider coming back again, because we would love to feature you again for sure.
Thank you.
You are so welcome. Everyone, your journey is personal to you. And if whatever Dr. Atkins has mentioned today resonates with you, and you just need perhaps a different opinion, maybe you're interested in working with Dr. Amanda. As she mentioned, you can go to her website and make that a free 20-minute consultation with her. Reach out to her today. Today is Cinco de Mayo, Fantabulous Friday. My name is Janice, aka Wellness Diva 5.0. I am with TwoSistas, and we shall see you again real soon. Thank you so much, Dr. Atkins.
Thank you.